Hey, what's going on, guys? You are listening to WSOU. I am Nick, and I am here with Josh from Hope for the Dying. What's going on, man?
Not too much. How you doing today, Nick?
Doing pretty good. And so big stuff has been happening with you guys. Just about, what was it, 2 weeks ago, you guys put out your album Legacy. So how's that been going so far with the reception?
Uh, so far so good. I mean, we've got a lot of great positive feedback on it, and I think sales have been good, and most importantly, all of us individually in the band are happy with how it turned out. So far so good.
That's awesome. Now, it's been about 3 years since you put out your last album, Alethea. So what was the process of, putting this together since you had a good amount of time to, come up with the material?
Yeah, we spent about the last 2 years writing and recording this album. Um, the process usually starts with Jack, our guitarist. He kind of puts together, we just call it a riff box, which is basically a folder that we share through Dropbox that has some different riffs that he's written, maybe not complete songs, but partial songs or close to complete songs, and then we kind of develop the songs out from there. And that can take some time because you have to get enough fundamental material together to begin with to even begin writing the songs. And sometimes a song takes form before it makes it to the riff box, and we have a whole song ready to go, and then we just need to tweak it out. But usually to wrap it up, usually starts with Jack. Then we go to me, and I put together vocals. At the same time, Brendan puts together drums, and then once we get through that process where we kind of know the basic structure of the song, then James puts together all the orchestral pieces, all the synthesizer stuff, and then we all hash it out and say what we like and don't like and try to rearrange it from there, and eventually we have a song. So that process has taken us a while for this album. We're all involved in some different projects, and a couple of us are working full time, so it definitely was a unique experience because we fit it all into a pretty busy schedule, but still kept the determination and making sure we wanted to put out an album that we were all happy with. So, but that's what it's been. We recorded drums and part of the vocals in Kansas City at Covenant Recording Studio with Josh Barber. And then we did all the rest of the recording of vocals and guitars and bass actually at our guitarist Jack's house in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So once we finished up in Kansas City, we spent the next couple of months after that just going back and forth to Cape because we all live within a pretty decent proximity of that town, and finished up the recording there. So.
Okay. So now my question is, since you guys are pretty progressive and there's a lot of different elements in the songs and pieces and peaks and valleys, how do you go about just figuring out which piece should go where and making sure that everything flows well? Because writing a 10-minute song, I can't imagine is easy.
Right, and that's something, I've been asked in interviews before, how do you end up with a 10-minute song or how do
Right.
you end up with a 4-minute song? And really, we just try to let the music naturally progress. It's so I would say, and I'm speaking partially, for Jack and Brendan specifically. Brendan, our drummer, actually wrote two or three of the songs on the new album.
Okay.
But when they set out to write the song, they don't say, okay, this is going to be a 10-minute song, or this
Right.
is going to be a 5-minute song. It's really more about the movements and the pieces and how we feel if the song has naturally ended, or is it dragging on too long? Do we need to cut out some parts? It is quite a process. And going back to what I said earlier, we do have the riff box, and sometimes we'll piece together a lot of different riffs and pieces that have been written, and then we might end up with a pretty long, 8 to 10 minutes or something like that, and then we may trim it or even add to it from there.
Right.
But it is quite a process, and it takes really, some time to sit down and work with the music to decide, is this going on too long, or does this song feel natural at its current state? And early on, our first full length, The Simulation, we had some pretty long songs on that album as well. And I feel like song length is something we had pretty well defined by the time we put out Legacy recently, because we kind of all fell into our groove. It just came a lot more naturally this time around. So.
Right. And going off of the length of the songs, every album just that you guys have put out has been just around the hour mark, which I think is interesting this day and age because, a lot of bands, in the metal genre usually put out maybe a 30-minute, maybe pushing 45 minutes. And so I think it's interesting that you guys still go for an hour-long album. And, in this day and age, I think, people's attention span isn't always there. So
Right.
what is your take on that? Like, why do you still push for that? Do you feel that fans still, envelop themselves in that whole album and listen to the whole thing through? Or do you think it's more a song here and there? Because I think it's just interesting now everyone's putting out EPs, shorter albums, and you're still going for the full thing.
Well, there's a couple of things there. One, traditional like metal or metalcore bands or hardcore bands typically are on a shorter album cycle than we are. They're
True,
usually
yeah.
putting out albums around once a year,
Right.
maybe a year and a half between albums, and whereas we're pretty consistently about 3 years between our albums, and we've got 4 out, 3 full lengths, and 1 EP.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. That's part one. Is we have more time to write and more time to develop that, and that may be why we end up with more finished material. It's hard to say. If we got in a rush and we had to meet a certain deadline, then you might find that we end up with a little bit of a shorter album as well. But that being said, I feel like as far as attention span goes, I feel like fans of our music, they're a fan of that genre already, so they're
Right.
kind of expecting the longer songs or anticipating it even. So it's not really a problem. Now there are, some of the negative feedback we may get on the album would probably be from people who don't typically listen to that kind of music anyway.
Right.
So they're thinking, oh wow, these songs are too long for metal. Well, not necessarily. They're too long for metalcore, not necessarily too long for progressive metal though.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, so that's kind of my take on it. Just I think we have a little more time in between albums, and that allows us to put together more material. And then for us, personally, individually in the band, we all kind of want to make it worthwhile. We put so much work into it, so we just we think usually around the 50-60 mark is where we like to end up minute-wise on the albums, just because it feels like a completed piece of music to us. So.
Okay. I like that. That's very good. But another thing that I liked about this album was the whole concept with the sword. And I know there was an actual sword made, right, with Legacy on it?
Yeah, it's sitting in my office with me right now. We haven't. We selected a winner, and it hasn't responded yet. So I'm kind of waiting on that guy to get back to us so we can ship this thing off. That's a bittersweet day because somebody's going to get an awesome sword, and at the same time, I'm going to lose an awesome sword. But James, he's one of our guitarists, and like I said, he does the orchestral stuff as well. Like he writes all of our orchestra string and horn parts and all of that, and some of our auxiliary percussion parts are written by him as well. But he kind of had the idea one time while we were in the early stages of the album, and we kind of already knew it was going to be called Legacy. And he said, hey, there's this guy, he has a forge, it's called Cedar Lore Forge. He made, the guy that engraved the sword for us made some of the weaponry used in like the Thor movies, the Marvel Thor movies. And he was like, we should hit him up and see if he'll make a sword for us. And I was like, man, that's going to be ridiculously expensive. And, the Face Down usually does a giveaway. And, like, in the past, we've given away, like, a guitar starter pack to try to encourage, like, musicianship or something like that, whatever. So we were just like, you know what, we want to do something unique. Let's pitch it to Jason Dunn at Face Down and see what he thinks. So we kind of just nervously pitched it to him because we went ahead and got a quote and everything for it. And as you may or may not know, getting a sword forged and engraved and a custom handmade wooden scabbard made is kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So we pitched it to him, and he ended up loving the idea and was like, yeah, let's go for it. As long as it's not like ridiculously expensive, let's see what we can do. So the Cedar Lore guy he didn't have time in his schedule to actually forge it for us. So he suggested us out to another company called Albion Swords, and they make, if you've seen a realistic sword, it's probably come from Albion. They make a lot of swords as far as like real life, slice a zombie's head off type swords. But so we hit up Albion and asked them, hey, would you be interested in participating in this? And they actually rendered their services for free. So they actually ended up forging the sword for us. Which was great, and it was really a testament to them wanting to be involved in the album, which was awesome for us. So Albion forged it, got the sword shipped out to David de la Guardia. I'm sure I just said his last name wrong, at Cedar Lore Forge. And then the Cedar Lore Forge dude, that's how I'll refer to him from here on out, he etched the sword for us. He got the legacy name etched down the blade, and then in the pommel it has our HFTD monogram. And then he went ahead and made a custom-made scabbard, which is like the wood sheath that the sword resides in. So it was a really cool process. The sword itself was probably like 8 months in the making from the time we got it approved until the time we actually got it shipped to our location. But it was really unique, and I think it generated a lot of extra hype about the album because we were, giving away a pretty unique item, and all you had to do was spend $8 to pre-order the CD.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
But yeah, we've got a winner for that selected. He just needs to hit us up. So if you're listening to this, Thomas Droll, you need to send me an email and claim your sword.
Now, going off the whole sword, and I saw on Facebook that as your description of the music, you guys consider yourself a progressive death metal soundtrack to Braveheart, which I think perfectly sums it up. So kind of talking me through the whole Braveheart aspect, because I do hear that kind of, medieval, like knights fighting kind of thing in there. So kind of talk me through that.
Well, we kind of wrote that in as a joke one day, just because everybody was on a big Braveheart kick, and just because it's an awesome movie.
Right.
It's one of those you can watch over and over and over again. It never loses its majesty, really. But we were just, kind of kicking it around that, like, if Braveheart had a more heavy metal soundtrack, that we think we could probably pull it off.
Right.
So that was kind of written as a joke, but kind of serious as well, because
Yeah.
we do have a lot of the orchestral elements, and there's a lot of really awesome, the score for Braveheart is magnificent. So, and we're all big fans of not only the movie, but the music that's involved in it as well. So that's kind of how that genre listing came about. The thing with us with genres in general is that we, a lot of people will ask us what genre we are, or try to kind of box us into one or another. So we've never really taken genre listings too seriously, because we don't really consider ourselves too specific. And and the general genre we typically go by is just progressive metal, and so some have categorized us as progressive death metal. But you'll find if you step in on our Facebook page every once in a while that we'll change that about once a year to something different, and hopefully equally as funny. So
that's pretty cool. The other thing that I found was interesting is what's the touring situation, because I didn't see anything about dates anywhere.
Right. We currently are not touring.
Okay.
We at this time, I'd say you would probably consider us a studio band. We have our one guitarist, Jack, also plays full time in a band called War of Ages, and they had for the last 2 years they've had a very hectic touring schedule, and they've hit a lot of states and countries, and so it kind of makes it pretty difficult. And I own my own business, 2 businesses actually, and I work pretty well full time plus some, usually 50, 60 hours a week, and I have a family and a kid, and our other guitarist James has a full-time job and a family and kid, and so it's just kind of hard for us to commit to any touring, or much touring at all. Usually around the release of an album, we'll typically try to play some festivals, we'll try to play some shows, or maybe hit a few short run tours. But other than that, we just really aren't hitting the road much. And for us, that decision kind of came from how specific our style of music is. While I do feel like we have a great fan base out there, touring has never been really super fruitful for us as a band. We've spent a lot of time out on the road and spinning our wheels, and at the end of the day, as much as we love music and as much as we love ministry and all of that stuff, we still have a family to feed and bills to pay, and so we kind of had to make the call eventually to say, if we're not going to lose our passion for music, we're going to have to find a way that we can do it and not starve, basically.
Right.
And that's kind of where we came. That was about 2012. We kind of all just had to have a sit down and talk and look at where the band was and take some realistic expectations on, how can we carry on making this music and this sound that we've developed that we're proud of, but not get everyone so burnt out that we just have a blowout and everybody hates the band and hates making music, you know. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where we ended up, was just we're going to have to cut out the touring and then the full-time band aspect, and just concentrate on our album cycles, writing music and making some videos and stuff to go along with the music and that sort of thing.
Okay. And because I did see you guys are playing Face Down Fest again this year, so I'm assuming that's something you're pretty pumped for.
Yeah, especially since it'll be, you know, the first show I've played since Face Down Fest last year pretty well. So, yeah, we're really excited, and Face Down Fest is unique because, you know, it's Face Down Records Festival, then they're all Face Down bands on the fest. So we get to go out, see the owners of the label, Jason and Virginia, and the people who work there, Shannon and Dave, and then of course, you know, all the bands that are playing. It's one of the, you know, it's really the only time of the year where you get to see that many Face Down Records people together in one spot. And it's at a venue called the Glass House, which is always a really cool place to play in Chino, California. You know, great stage, great production, great lights. So it's always a really awesome experience. So.
Yeah, definitely. And this year's lineup, it looks really eclectic and awesome too. You know, got Impending Dooms on there, War of Ages, you guys, everything in slow motion, very eclectic. But I think that's the cool thing about, you know, the label itself, is there's such a wide variety.
That's right. There's a really big spread of genres and subgenres that will be there, and, you know, different personalities. And it really, if you come to Face Down Fest, there's really going to be something for everybody there, honestly.
Definitely. And another thing that I found interesting was I saw that you guys are without a bass player, and you have your drummer track your bass. So what's your, when you do play shows, what's the bass situation usually?
Sometimes we have someone fill in if we have time to rehearse with them and that sort of thing. But typically we have our bass on a backing track.
Okay.
So we will actually run a bass amp on stage because we like to have the presence of the bass part on stage with us. So we usually run a mixing board that sends signal out to the bass amp and then sends signal out to the house sound. So as far as the house sound guy is concerned, it's just like we have a bass player. And then as far as we're concerned on stage, we still get to hear, you know, as if we have one with us. The only thing missing is, you know, the extra body on stage, which would be nice. But we're not a real big move around on stage type of band. We're typically concentrating on our parts, and we're not really a stage show type band. We're more performance oriented, I guess, musically, I should say.
Right.
So there are times where it's like, you know, it'd be nice to have like one more guy standing up here, but other than that, it works pretty well for us to do the backing track.
Right. Is that something you strive that you want to get another person at some point?
Where we're at right now, I'd say it would be pretty difficult because the bass parts are pretty demanding musically.
Right.
And while I have no doubt there are a lot of people out there that can do it, it's hard to find. Someone really would need to be in our area. They would need to be, you know, a very high level on their musicianship. And then they would also have to be okay with the fact that, hey, we don't really play any shows. We just need you every once in a while, and when we write an album, basically. So it's kind of a unique experience for someone who's not been in the band all along to commit to, you know what I mean? But that being said, you know, we've had some people fill in from now and again. A friend of ours, Alex, who played in the band The Burial, filled in for us on a festival once and did an excellent job. And actually, our current drummer, Brendan, there was a time where we had a fill-in on drums, Caleb Lupchow, and so at that point, like, Brendan ended up being free for a Face Down Fest one year, so he just flew out and played bass for us that year too. So it's been pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
But anyway, so long story short, we make it okay without one, and, you know, if ever somebody comes along who's a good fit and likes the situation, you know, we may consider that as well. So.
Right. And the other thing is, I saw now it's been about 10 years as a band for you guys. How is that?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. How does that feel? You know, it's a big number for a band to be around for that long.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually we're kind of releasing some videos with the new album online, just some little like lyric videos and that sort of thing. And the one I'm getting ready to release is kind of a testament to that, kind of a looking back through time at like our old band promos and that sort of thing. And I mean, it feels good.
Yeah.
A lot of bands don't make it that long. I feel like, you know, we're well established as far as, you know, like our sound and everything. And, you know, it feels good to still be around. You know, we got 4 guys that get along with each other well. You know, we're not just bandmates. We're all good friends. Like, we work well together musically, and it definitely is a good feeling when I sit down and think about it. Wow, since 2006, we've managed to somehow hold this all together. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. And since you have that, the 10 years and everything, if someone wasn't, a fan of your band or didn't know of who you guys were, and you had to pick like one song for them to kind of, get who you guys were or kind of introduce them to you, since you have, kind of a wide variety at this point, what do you think would be a good song for someone who doesn't really know much about you guys?
Probably, like, if I'm choosing from our full catalog,
Yeah.
I would probably do like "Open Up the Sky," which is from our album Alethea. Just because it's like a 10 or 11 minute song, and it's got fast parts and slow parts. It's got some singing. It's got piano. It's got a little bit of everything we do in it, and it's got some guitar solos, everything. If I chose just from Legacy, like probably the best song on Legacy that represents our sound as a whole would be our first single we released, which is "Setting Sun."
Okay. Perfect. All right. So is there anything you want to say wrapping up?
No, I just, going back to the 10 years thing, I just want to say thanks to all those who have been supporting us and listening to our music all these years. And if you haven't had a chance to check out our new album, Legacy, please do. It's, iTunes, Spotify, Google Music, just about anywhere you can find music, you can find a copy of it. So, and also thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.